Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. On today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make a princess cut with v-neck and a flare attached to the hem. But before we get into the video, I need to explain something to you about this dress. As you can see, this dress is divided into three parts. We have from the shoulder to the waist, from the waist to the above the knee, that is the skirt part, and from the skirt part we have the flare. So we are going to start cutting from the top part of the dress. So here I have marked out the shoulder line. The shoulder of this person is 18 inches divided by 2. I have 8 inches, so I also marked it on the chest line, and then I connected it with a straight ruler. So from the top to the chest line is 8 inches, and from the top to the bust point line is 10 inches. So that is the bust point line you are seeing there. And from the bust point line, to on the bust is 14 inches, and the 16 inches is the length of the top, and I added half an inch to join the dress to the lower part. So next I'm going to mark the bust span of this person on the bust point line, on the underbust line, and on the waist line. I marked 4 inches. So I'm going to connect those points with a straight ruler. So the bust span of this person is 8 inches divided by 2 is 4. So I marked 4 inches for the bust span. So on this side of the line I'm going to mark 1.5 inches. I want to get the princess cut now. So on the other side I'm going to mark 1 inch. On the underbust line I'm also going to mark 1.5 inches on this side, and on the other side I'll mark 1 inch. So after that I'm going to take my straight ruler and connect the 2 points I made, that is the underbust and the waistline. So next I'm going to connect the points to the bust point line on the 2 sides. So this is how you get the princess cut. So moving on, I'm going to insert the circumference measurement. On the bust line I'm going to mark the bust measurement divided by 4, and on the waistline I'll mark the waist measurement divided by 4. And remember I marked 1.5 on this side and 1.5 on the other side, that is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to add that back to the measurement. And after that, I'm going to cut through the dart I just made, so I would need half an inch to join the 2 parts together. So I'm going to mark that half an inch also. And next I'm going to add 2 inches for the seam allowance of this dress. Okay, so on the armhole line I'm going to get the measurement and divide it into 2, meaning I'm getting the center of the armhole, and then on each side of the point I just made I'm going to mark half an inch. So next I'm going to take my straight ruler, and on that center line I'm going to connect to the chest line like this, and then I'm going to find a curve to the bust point, just smoothing out that point. Alright, just like this. And the half an inch I marked on each side, I'm also going to connect it to the chest line, just like this. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's smooth on the bust point line, is not sharp, so curve it out properly. So next I'm going to mark, I'm cutting through the bust point line too, so I'm going to need half an inch to join it together. So I'm going to add that half an inch to my measurements, just like this, and then I'll add 2 inches for the seam allowance. Okay, so I I marked half an inch on each side of the armhole. So what I want to do is to add that half an inch, making 1 inch, half an inch on each side, making 1 inch. So I just marked it out, and I'm going to curve it to the armhole just like this. I hope you get what I'm saying. So I'm going to connect the bust line to the waistline measurement just like this. So this is where I'll be cutting through. Okay, so moving on to the shoulder, I'm going to mark half an inch for my shoulder slope, and for the width of this dress I want it to be 6 inches wide. So I'm going to connect this down to the bust point line. I'm going to explain why I'm doing this later. So I'll connect this straight to the bust point line and then connect my shoulder slope just like this. Okay, so the reason I use 6 inches for this and connected to the bust point is because I'm adding this black thing you are seeing here on the dress. So by the time I add that, it's going to come up to the chest line or a little bit above the chest line, so it's not going to be too low. So next I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So you need to pay attention to the way I'm cutting it, because cutting it is as important as inserting your measurement. If you don't cut it properly, you would miss it. So just take note of how I am cutting this out. So after cutting, this is what I have: the front panel and the 2 sides like this. So I'm going to set this aside and go ahead and show you how to cut the back of this top. So I've outlined the back also. As you can see, that's my 2 inches I added for the zipper allowance. And take note that all our measurements are going to start from that line you are seeing there. So now I'm going to mark my the bust measurements, a quarter of the bust measurement, and I'm going to add 2 inches seam allowance. On the waistline, I'm going to add a quarter of the waist measurement. Then I'll add 1 inch for the dart, and then I'm going to mark 2 inches also for the seam allowance. Then I'm going to connect the bust line and the waistline measurement together. Okay, next I'm going to mark the bust pan. As usual, the bust pan is 4 inches. I mark that on the waistline. Okay, now I'm going to mark the bust point line. I'm just marking 10 inches from the shoulder. So that becomes my bust point line. So on that point, so I'm going to mark 4 inches, which is my bust span, and I'm going to connect the 2 points to the waistline. And on each side of that line, I'm going to mark half an inch. And I'm going to connect the line straight to the bust point line. So that's just it on how to connect the dart. So next I'm going over to the shoulder. The neck width I'm working with on this back panel is 4 inches. Remember I told you that I'm adding something to the front. So by the time I add it, it's going to be exactly 4 inches neck width too. The same with the back. So I'm going to connect the shoulder slope. And for the neck depth of this dress, I want a neck depth of 1 inch for the back. So I'm just going to mark 1 inch. And then I'm going to connect it. So remember that I'm going to connect this neck width to the zipper allowance line like this, just straight to the zipper allowance. All right, so next I'm just going to carve out the armhole. It's very easy, just the way I'm doing it. You can use your curve ruler if you have. So after that, I'll just cut it out and slit the back into 2. So here we have the 2 back panel for our dress. So next I'm going to move on to the skirt part of this dress. So the full length of this dress is 59 inches, and for the skirt it's going to be 22 inches, but here I marked 23 inches because I'll need half an inch to join the upper part and half an inch also to join the lower part to the flay. So I marked 23 inches. So sorry guys, I just realized that my camera stopped rolling, so I'm just going to explain what I did here. So this is the front panel that I've already cut out. Like I said, I need a full length of 22 inches, but here I have 23 inches because I'll use half an inch to join the upper part to the top, and then half an inch to join the lower part to the flay part of the dress. So that's why I have 23 inches. So from the waist to the hip line is 8 inches. So here I have 8 inches. Okay, this is 8 inches. So next I'm going to mark on the waistline. I'm going to mark 1/4 of my waist measurement. Okay, and I added 1 inch for that and 2 inches for the seam allowance. On the hip line, I marked 1/4 of the hip measurement plus 2 inches seam allowance. So I dragged the measurement down to the full length of the skirt part. Okay. And after doing that, I just marked 1.5 inches inwards on the full length to make the down tinier than the upper part. So I went in by 1.5 inch. If you see, you can see it's 1.5 inches that I removed on the lower part, and so I connected to the hip and then I cut it out. So that is all I did for the front panel of the skirt. So this I'm going to use to cut out the back panel of the skirt. So here I have outlined the front panel on the back and I added 2 inches for zipper allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And then I'm going to remove the front panel. I'll notch the zip part. Okay, then I'll remove the front panel and then slit the back into 2. So now we have 2 back panels and 1 front for the skirt. Moving on, we are going to cut the sleeve of this dress. So to calculate the cap's height, you divide your bust by 12 plus half an inch. So for me, the bust of this person divided by 12 plus half an inch is 3.5 inches. Therefore, the cap's height I'm working with for this dress is 3.5. I hope that is clear enough. So I'm going to mark the guideline, and I'm going to mark the full length of this sleeve. It's 22 inches, but here I have 23 because I'm going to use 1 inch for the hemming. So I'm marking the full length of the dress, and the full length of the sleeve, and I'm going to connect it with my ruler. So from our calculation, our cap's height is 3.5. So I'm going to mark 3.5 from the shoulder. I'll mark that again, and I'm going to connect it with my straight ruler to form a straight line. So after that, I'm going to mark my armhole round from the corner, the side of the sleeve, like this. And then I'm going to connect it with a straight ruler. So take note, I marked my armhole round on this place. Okay. So next, after marking the armhole round, I'm going to mark take the full measurement of the armhole round and mark the middle. For me, it's 8. So the middle is 4 inches. So I'm just marking that. And on the side of the sleeve, I'm going to make a curve down to that center that I marked. And I'm just going to curve it down just like this. It's very easy. In case you don't understand, I'm going to put a link to my basic sleeve pattern on this video. Just in case you don't understand what I'm doing, you can go and watch that video. So next, I'm adding the circumference of the sleeve divided by 2. Then I'll add 2 inches for the seam allowance, and I'm just going to connect the points. So on the sleeve opening, I'm marking the sleeve circumference divided by 2. Then I also add 2 inches for the seam allowance. So I'm going to connect it to meet this line you're seeing right here. So when I get to the sleeve opening, I'm not going to mark it straight. I'm just going to sort of curve it so that by the time I cut it and fold it in, I won't be short of fabric. So I'm just going to cut it out, and I'm going to use this to cut the second sleeve. So after cutting these 2 sleeves, this is what I have. Like I said, it's very easy to make. Very, very easy. So for the flare part of the dress, you are going to take the circumference measurement of the place you are inserting the flare and divide whatever you get by 6.28. For instance, the circumference of this place I'm attaching the sleeve to is 32 inches. Divided by 6.28 is 5.0. So I'm going to add that 5.0 to the full length of the flare. The full length of this flare I'm working with is 23 inches plus 5.0, that is 28 inches. So I'm marking 28 inches on this part. Note that I folded my fabric into 4 places. You already know how to do this by now, but in case you don't know how to do this, I'm going to put the link of a video where I showed how to cut a 360 flare on this video. I'm going to link it to this video so you can go and watch that. So what I'm doing now is I'm marking 28 inches all round, ensuring that my measuring tape is placed at the edge of the fabric. You don't move your measuring tape from that point. So you are going to leave the measuring tape right there and insert the full length you are working with. So I'm just marking 28 inches all round like this, and then I'm going to connect the points. So from that point, I'm going to mark 5.0. Alright, remember I told you that the circumference is 32. 32 divided by 6.28, that is 5.0. So I'm marking that right on the edge of the fabric. So I'm going to mark 5.0 all round. Remember not to move your measuring tape from that point. You're going to place it right there and rotate and mark just like this. So after marking the points, I'm going to connect all the points I've marked to form a semicircle like this. Okay, so because I'm going to need 1/2 inch to join this to the skirt part of the dress, I am going to mark 1/2 inch upwards so that I will not be short of, so that my dress will not be shorter than it's supposed to be. So I'll mark 1/2 inch upwards and I am going to cut it out like this, and I'm going to cut it on the other side too. So after cutting, this is what I have. You can see the flay, it's very beautiful. Yes, so I'm going to show you all of the parts that we have. So this is the skirt part of the dress, the 2 back panels and the front panel. So by the time I sew it, I'm going to attach the flay to this part like this. Not exactly like this, but something like this. I'm just trying to show you. So I'm going to open it up to attach it just like this. So what the next thing I did also was to cut lining for all of the parts I made. I cut lining for the 2 back panels, for the sleeve. Okay, so these are the 2 back panels and this is the sleeve. The sleeve is going to go on the armhole like this, you already know. So for the front also, I cut a lining piece. So your lining is going to be exactly how you cut the main fabric. So it's going to be exactly the same with the main fabric. So this is the end of the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love you. Bye.